Hey, folks, welcome back to The Pulse. My name's Matt, and this is Crypto Heartbeat. It is 11 o'clock Central Texas time. Let me make sure everything is all set up and ready to go. And it is. I hope you're doing well today. You know what? Big hat tip and shout out to your friend Somi for the inspiration for this stream, because when I dug into this stuff, I was shocked. I think I knew that there was corruption, but you know what? I had an interesting perspective, and I'm like, you know what? I normally don't do this, but I'm gonna call it like I see it, right? I'm gonna call this one out. The SEC and JP Morgan. It's really broader than that. It's really JP Morgan as an example, right? This is stuff that's happening. But I think it's really important to think about this in terms of Richard Hart and the SEC. And if you actually look at how this all fits together, it's a Ponzi, my friends. The whole thing is, right? It's funny that we want to pin this down on people and say, look, you're a Ponzi. When, you could make a case that everything in this world is a Ponzi, right? We got to have more kids, and those kids got to work so I can retire. Whatever it is. Good luck retiring these days. So let's get into the chat, say hello to you. We'll get into the content. It'll be fun today. Hope you're doing well. A lot of this is just bearing each other's burdens in the bear market, right? It's funny. We got all kinds of shiny things everybody's chasing. It's crazy. It's crazy, folks. But there is hope. There's some things we're working on that I'm just so excited about. It's amazing. And I'll give you a little bit of a sneak peek, and it's really related to the tokenization of real world assets. Real world assets is really going to be the biggest thing this next decade. Because what does real world asset tokenization do but bring, liquidity into the market? And imagine bringing billions upon billions of dollars into the Pulse Chain ecosystem. Yeah, that's the key to this whole thing, right? Follow the money. Let's say hello to you, and then we'll get into the content. Sam Kemp, what's up? Good morning, Crypto Heartbeat. Sam Kemp, it's always an encouragement to hear from you and to see you in the chat. Thanks for being here. You know what? These are cycles, and we're going to follow these cycles. But folks, you know what drives us so much is hope, right? Hope that tomorrow will be a better day. And that's, I appreciate that. Sam is hopeful of Texas independence and hopeful for all kinds of things in crypto and hopeful for great grandchildren, right? Kadium, hello, hoping all are prepared mentally, physically, and spiritually. That's a big part of all this, right? Getting your house in order. But you know what is interesting? I was just having a conversation with Ray earlier about perspective. And it's really important. If I said to you, for the next 10 minutes, all you can tell me about in your life is what you're thankful for and what you're proud of and what you are happy about in the midst of all this stuff. And anytime, no matter what you're dealing with, I guarantee you can make a list. It may be children. It may be what your children are doing. It may be spouse. It may be certain circumstances. It may be, I don't know, right? But there's always something. And you think about this idea of being thankful, it's really important. But perspective is everything, right? What is a philosophy in your life but provides you with a framework and a perspective, a worldview to see things through? That's what I'm trying to help you with here, is to see this a different way, or potentially a way that helps provide you with hope. That's the whole thing. Mr. Rock Jockey, good morning, everyone. Hexy Quinn, good morning, Texans. Thanks for being here, Hexy Quinn. And David Lee, all the way from southwestern Indiana, coming into the chat. He's always here and ready to give everybody a hug. Samantha, hello. Hey, y'all. Good to have you here. I've been noticing a lot of your Twitter posts. You are getting fit as a fiddle. It's very impressive and encouraging. People taking care of their health and just, it's got to feel good. So congratulations for all of the work that you put in, right? A lot of the stuff is effort over time, chopping the wood. That's what I'm doing on this stream. 22 people here. Thanks for being here. Michael, Atomic, what's going on? Crypto Compassion, what's up, dude? Talk about a guy who's been here from the beginning. Thanks so much for stepping in. And then Viber Finance CEO is bringing the alpha. You are streaming more, and I'm seeing you more, and it's so awesome that you're here. Thanks for being here and supporting. We're sticking together in all of this, and everybody's got a different skill set and a different ability, and they bring that value to the table. Even the gentle ginger giant genius, Brandon. We recognize value. Everyone has got something to offer. The stars at night are big and bright. Godfather J6, good to see you. Hex Honcho, good morning, everyone. Facing reality, what is up? Fire is all around. Acting emaciated. Afternoon all. Another great day in the bear. Yeah, this is it, right? Misery loves company. Might as well get together and share some of this stuff. But to understand how corrupt the current system is, if you watch any of the stuff I do with Steve Staggs on Fridays, we talk about the upside down world. What is the upside down world? It's one that is based on this extraction model, right? It's one that's concerned about their own selfish ambition over others, right? And it's not following the framework of creation, because the framework of creation is abundant. We're going to be talking about that corruption specifically between really the government and this relationship they have with their customer. That's going to be exciting. Russ, what's going on, Russ? Good to see you. Texan OG day one. Good afternoon, Texans. I don't think you sleep. Man, I get a good 6 hours a night. What's going on? All right, folks, here, let's jump in this. I want to share with you something. I put this out on Twitter, but I think it's worth an entire stream. So let me share it on my screen here. We're going to look at this violation tracker. I linked this in my on my Twitter as well. So let's all check this out together. This is Good Job's first violation tracker, and this tracks all of this stuff. But this is specifically with JP Morgan Chase. Okay, so let me see if I can zoom in a little bit on this. Maybe I can. Yeah, there we go. So let's take a look at this. This is a violation tracker, current parent company summary, right? This is JP Morgan Chase, right? JPM, New York Financial Services. Penalty total since 2000. So I gave a hat tip and the shout out to your friend Somi. When I heard this number, he was shocked. I was shocked. I'm like, what? There's 38 billion? It's really $39 billion over 23 years. So just like stop, and I want to emphasize this and shine a light on it. Okay. Do you know what that means? Think about this. That's like 1.75 billion a year in penalties if you average it over 23 years. $39 billion in penalties. So let's juxtapose that against Richard Hart, right? So we got these SEC violations, and not all these are SEC. Some of these are criminal, right? This is a company that operates that they say is too big to fail, run by Jamie Dimon, and it builds into its business model a 1.75 billion average penalty. Think about this. You're running a business and you're doing risk management, and we're going to dig into this and we're going to look at how did this happen? Why do they allocate essentially $1.75 billion to pay penalties? And I'm going to make a case that this is just a Ponzi of corruption, right? And so this is the punchline. JP Morgan Chase, as well as other financial firms, are customers of the government. What do you mean? Well, let's think about it as it relates to, let's say a police force in a small town. Where does the revenue from traffic tickets, parking tickets, all these things go to? Okay, so think about this for a second. And this is the thing that just boils my blood. Richard Hart is being sued by the SEC for fraud. Okay. We all sacrificed for freedom of speech and freedom of movement. And so our money was sacrificed, and it's sitting in a wallet controlled by Richard Hart. There's $600 million worth of DAI sitting there. Nothing's happened to it, right? He spends some money, in my opinion, on marketing, And that's his choice, right? Marketing himself, his brand, buys watches and Louis Vuitton and all the stuff, whether he bought it with crypto or not. We gave it to him, right? It was a donation. I can throw my money in a hole if I want to. What's really interesting, though, is here comes the SEC. And what are they trying to do? They're trying to get your and my money. Think about what a fine is. Okay. And so we're going to dive into this. This is really interesting because it's a relationship that's probably pretty cozy. Think about how many people work for JP Morgan Chase and think about the people that are in charge of compliance, right? All right. So let's dig into this. We'll get back to Richard Hart here in a second. So the top 5 offense groups for JP Morgan is financial offenses, consumer protection related offenses, competitive related offenses, government contracting related offenses, and employee related offenses. So if you look at this number of records, 115 financial offenses. And so this is 22 years, right? It just goes to show you if you're a part of the infrastructure and you are essentially the customer of the SEC or the customer of the Department of Justice, but let's just use the SEC in general. Where does your revenue come from? And where do you focus your attention? On the big deals. So in a strange sort of way, you need JP Morgan Chase to do things incorrectly because they've allocated things. You don't think they're aware that they have a 1.75 billion liability annually for paying fees? Yeah, they do. So let's take a look at what these things are. So these are the individual penalty records. And we're not going to go into detail, but you could go to this violation tracker and you could look at each particular case. It's broken down. So let's just take number 1. In the year of 2013, the Department of Justice basically, and that's criminal, right? Toxic security abuses, 13 billion. So let's click on this. Interesting. Violation tracker, individual results. So I'm not sharing anything like that isn't public. So this is JP Morgan Chase. They paid $13 billion in 2013. The Justice Department, along with federal and state partners, announced a $13 billion settlement with JP Morgan to resolve federal and state civil claims rising out of packaging, marketing, and the sale and issuance of, this is the mortgage-backed security stuff. Okay, great. So that's $13 billion fine. Let's see the next one. Mortgage abuses. We know about those. 2008, investor protection violations. Okay. 2013, banking violation. But let's kind of roll down here to the SEC itself because it's by agency. Look at all these different agencies. Look at all this revenue, folks. So this is essentially, if you think about these organizations, it's a customer list, right? JP Morgan Chase has a relationship with the government. And it is just a part of risk management, folks. It's not like they're trying to do things right. They're like, well, if we have some anti-money laundering deficiencies, and that's just goes to show you what happens when corporate America and the government, right? So what ends up happening when you do something or steal something? Well, hey, SEC or whatever organization, Department of Justice, you get to look like a hero because you just got a big fine. But JP Morgan Chase is going to continue to operate, right? And so what are they going to do? It's essentially passing money. So whose money is it? So let's think about the Richard Hart scenario for a second. And this should just boil your blood because it does mine. So think about this. If there's a fine that is settled because the regulatory environment is not clear, right? We don't have laws that have made it clear on crypto. What are we going to see? So let's just, for example, let's say Richard decides he's going to settle. Right? Just like JP Morgan Chase. They're like, we just factor this into our business model. This is a line item. And so, okay. So instead, we'll stay away from criminal things, but we'll work with the Mexican drug cartels. We'll do all kinds of weird things as it relates to, because here's the thing, it'll just be what we consider to be a slap on the wrist. It's a part of doing business. Whereas you look at regular people that are trying to do something like Richard Hart is, you don't have a clear regulatory environment. And they're going after him for spending money on watches and stuff and trying to make this loose connection to people that don't have an investment contract who essentially threw their money into a hole. Yeah, okay. They're going to try to make that case. But think about this. If a fine is paid by Richard Hart, where does it come from? Whose money is it? It's yours and mine. So this is essentially a legal way to extort money from people. And think about what they look like at the SEC. They probably are high-fiving around the water cooler. Hey, yeah, we got that Richard Hart guy, or we got this settlement from so and so. Guess where that goes? Chances are into a budget. So if you think about any sales organization, why do you do sales? Why do you do your business? Because you want to make profit. Now, they're a regulatory agency, and it's, under this, cloud of, well, we're regulating these things and we're representing the people. No, 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 no. Think about this. There's somebody at JP Morgan Chase or any of these big banks, and it's some guy who goes home to his family at night. And what does he do? He goes to dinner with the regulating guy, right? So there's a guy that works at the SEC, and he's the contact with JP Morgan, and this is the, compliance officer guy, and they probably have martinis. They're like, all right, what's going on? What's going on? Because this is, it's deal flow. Right? If you think about it, it's deal flow. And it's already factored into the budget. You have to do this. I mean, if you're in a business of that size, you have to do risk management. And if you figure, well, we pay on average $1.75 billion in fines, well, who's paying for that stuff? So you defraud people, you do all these things. You basically have no rules because you know that there's, as long as you're not doing things criminally or avoiding it. Look at if you watch the movie The Big Short, you saw this happening with the rating agencies on the mortgage-backed securities, right? What is it, Standard and Poor's? We're like, well, we've got to give them the AAA rating or they'll go somewhere else. And that's the thing that's so crazy, is this is the corruption of the model. And I'm confident that if you factored this into your business model, what do you tell think about this. The Ivy League fraternity boys that get hired out of Dartmouth and Yale and Princeton and Harvard and all of these finance guys that likely were on the crew team or lacrosse or the football team. And you know who they are, right? Good jawlines. You know what I'm talking about? 6'3", 6'4", look good in a suit, right? Fraternity brothers. And what do? They look good, smile, drink a martini, and high five. That's what it's about. This is just, you want to talk about money laundering? This is what it is. It's relationships between government and corporate, and this is just an assumed thing. And so what happens when you bust somebody? Well, one, you make revenue on a settlement, and you get promoted. It's good for everybody. It's the business. And you know what's so frustrating about this is we got a guy under the, he's under the microscope of the SEC. And see, this is why things are about to be exposed. The internet and these communication channels, the ability to do this streaming and all this stuff is exposing things to the light, right? We had WikiLeaks, we had Edward Snowden. We've got all of these things. It's hard to keep things secret. We got aliens. The Mexican government came out like 2 hours ago and said, hey, we found this alien in Cusco, and, they have some sort of alien mummy that barely has any DNA commonality with us. And they're basically saying, hey, here's an alien mummy. And these things are getting exposed. Why? Because we got a 24-hour news cycle. We got the ability to communicate in real time. But the promise of this is that things can be exposed. So what is crypto? What is this public ledger but transparency? And so if you can't really keep things secret anymore, in a way, it's like, do you want to just be in the Matrix and not know? Remember the guy in the Matrix movie? He's like, I do want to know nothing. Put me back into the Matrix. Right? I don't want to know really what's going on. And that's what's happening here is we're seeing these things exposed, and all of these things are going to be exposed. And that's the thing that creates a tremendous amount of uncertainty. But you realize that it's all corrupt. So what is the solution to this? What is the solution to this ultimate Ponzi scheme, if you will? That your money that you put into a sacrifice, right, is actually going into the pockets of people who work at the SEC and the government. That's what it is. It's a shakedown, folks, right? Because guys like Richard Hart and people, they can lose they don't care, right? Destroy you. But the big guys, right, too big to fail, it's a line item in risk management. Think about that. $1.75 billion on average a year in penalties. And then think about the money you sacrifice. You know who's done damage to us? The SEC. There should be a class action lawsuit against the SEC, right? Because if they recover this money, whose money is it? If they were really defending these investors, these poor investors that they thought they should give it back to us. But they don't do that, right? This is their line items in their budget. This is revenue. This is how this all works. And you know that if this is all baked into the program, there's no accountability. In a way, it's like make as much damn money as we possibly can by any possible means, regardless of what the regulators are, because we're going on a golf vacation with him or on a yacht next month. It's all a cozy relationship and everyone benefits from it, eating at this trough of scarcity. And that's the thing that crypto solves. That's what actually DeFi solves. Folks, we got to get together. And that's what I love about this community. High five and hugging. That's what I love about David Lee. Anybody of any different background can come into this community and we can go, hey, we're going to do things in a transparent way, above board. But we're going to do it peer to peer. We're not going to do it with these. We're going to cut out the middleman. And who is the middleman? These players, right? Government, all these people, cut them out. They don't want to lose. This is the freaking gravy train, man. It's the gravy train. Whew. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Let's get back in the chat for a second. I got something else to say before the end of this thing. But you see what's going on? It's crazy to me what is going on. Gotcha. Tim Campbell, I believe AI has the whole crypto market under control. The prices, I read the document from Swift talking about barrier being lifted with November. Who knows? So who knows, right? There you go. Timothy, read BlackRock's Aladdin. Yeah, you talk about, there's all kinds of these prediction models. Frosty Dog, what's going on? It's good to see you here. So glad that you could join us today. It's rare, but Frosty Dog essentially shows up occasionally, and I appreciate that. Illegal with a fine equals legal for a price. Absolutely. I mean, it's a part of that's the Ponzi scheme, right? This is the insider trading, if you will. The great reset versus the great awakening. And that's the beauty of this, is that why fundamentally love DeFi and why I think the Pulse chain is really critical to that is because if we're going to truly benefit from the transparency of the blockchain, we got to make sure that it is truly decentralized and truly transparent. And to me, this long-term future, like 10 to 20 years, let's say, of the Pulse chain, what layer one is going to be non-corrupted, right? Who's going to actually ensure that it's based on the principles? It's not, OFAC compliant, right? And I'm not against things like anti-money laundering. I'm not against KYC, but I am against this whole. I'm against this whole kind of pay-to-play thing, right? It's crony capitalism, and it's a ruse, is what it is. And when you see it like that, you're like, I had no idea that J.P. Morgan Chase. I had no idea that J.P. Morgan Chase. When I heard that number. When I was listening to Somi this morning, I'm like, what are you talking about? Is that really true? $39 billion in the last 23 years has been paid in fines? Yeah, just settle them. Look at these things. Abuses, banking violations. And here we are worked up because Richard Hart bought some watches and a diamond? Look at this stuff, folks. I mean, these aren't small amounts. These are in the millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. Look at this, SEC, right? Investor protection violation, 2018, 135 million. Accounting fraud, Foreign Corruption Practices Act, investor protect. I mean, if you have this kind of violation every year, you've got somebody that's managing it, and he's got a buddy over at the SEC. You're too big to fail. And it's just like anything. You know those guys. It reminds me of why we have a dual justice system, right? If you've got money, you get better justice than if somebody doesn't have money. Well, that violates the system in the process, right? What do we want? What do I want from Texas independence? Do I just want it to be some, conservative utopia? No, it needs to be fair, right? Right? Equal justice under the law. All men are created equal. That's what we were looking for. And I don't know anybody from either side of the political spectrum who's reasonable who doesn't want to see that as well. But we have to return this to popular control. So how do we do it? Well, we have to have the resources. The resources are in the scarcity model. I'm going to do everything I can over the next, rest of my life to find ways in which we can unlock abundance, that we can be in a different model, a right side up model, not an upside down model that's based on scarcity, but one that's based on abundance. And so that's why I give you a little tip, a little insider scoop for those of you who watch Crypto Heartbeat. What are we working on? Tokenizing real world assets to bring a tremendous amount of liquidity into the DeFi marketplace. And where is that? The Pulse chain. What happens if billions of dollars are brought into the Pulse chain as liquidity that's locked? You have to be attractive, right? That's what it's all about. But I want to invest in things that I know are going to truly be decentralized, things that are going to truly be transparent, that don't have a middleman, right? This is the human experience, though, right? Because people are concerned about themselves. It's called selfish ambition. But this whole idea of the blockchain and what I saw in the Hexagon community, in the Texan community, in the Ophirian community, is people getting together of different walks of life and saying, you know what? We have hope in something, that there's an opportunity that we might be able to see tomorrow be a better day than today. And I don't care what your background is. I don't care who you love. I don't care what your ethnicity is, your race. I don't care what your genders preferences are. You get a hug from David Lee, get a high five from me. That's how it works. Why? Because we have unity. And a big part of this is the freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of privacy, freedom to transact. Where is that going to be protected and ushered in? Do you realize how powerful DeFi is if it's true DeFi? We got to protect this thing at absolutely all costs, because this is the cesspool that we're coming out of. Absolute corruption. And it's amazing that somebody like JP Morgan Chase, and they're just the focus of this stream, right? It's not just them, it's all of them. This whole too big to fail thing, it's an understanding between the regulators and the too big to fail folks. And they get a pass, right? These are just people. It's all they are. And so these guys are like, you need to think about it. Think about the bros, the finance bros. You know who they are. You know what I'm talking about, right? Hey, you like my $3,000 suit, man, right? I can just see them waltzing into the office, right? New York City, finance bros, right? High-fiving. And what are they doing? They're like, yeah, we can get away with anything. Yeah. And they probably have strategies in which to get away from things so that they're not criminal. They're like, yeah, well, if we get caught. And I'm sure there's some time you're sitting there having your scampi, right? You got you're sitting in a back room after dinner with an after dinner drink, and you've got a cigar, and you're sitting there talking to your regulator buddy, right? You went skiing with him in Aspen, and then you guys were on families were on the yacht. And he's like, dude, what's going on over there at JP Morgan Chase? Man, throw us a bone, man. I need a win, man. We need something to go on. Well, all right, we'll throw you this bone, right? Literally, I could see a relationship between those people saying, yeah, we're doing this. We know this is wrong, but we'll get a slap on the wrist. It's part of our expense line. Yeah. And it feeds them. And then, yeah, give me a little bit of a bone here, man, so I can look good in front of my boss. It's all the same stuff. We need to expose this stuff. We need to make it transparent. We need to cut out that middleman. That's what DeFi does. I see a future in which people in community of trust tokenize, and they say, no, we're not using your money. We're not using your CBDCs. We're not taking your digital ID. We're not taking your government wallet and your CBDC. And we're not going to have a social credit score. But that's what's coming, folks. This is the mark of the beast. But what are we going to do? Value is determined by parties. And there's some good things out there that are showing that adoption is only going to increase. People don't realize how big of a deal this PayPal thing is because they don't like the contract of PYUSD. I get it, but it's still incredible, right? 400 million people on the PayPal network that are going to have the ability to use crypto. I mean, they're going to integrate these things over the next couple of years, and you'll be able to go from an ERC20 of Hex. You'll be able to buy anything at all of these retailers that accept PayPal. Now, you need something, you'll do it, right? If you want that, but that's bridged over your Hex. Otherwise, you'd have to find somebody that's selling, I don't know, a mattress in Ohio. You may not need a mattress. You may need something else. This whole, I mean, but this is the thing. The antidote to this authoritarianism is true DeFi. And who's going to carry that torch? The guy who's been doing it since the beginning, Richard Hart, right? You may not like this stuff, but I think when all of this is written in history, we're going to look at Richard Hart in a very different way because he stood up to and with his principles, the true principles of DeFi. I just can't see it anywhere else that somebody's going to actually defend it, right? We have a copy of Ethereum 2.0. Is it super liquid? Is it easy to get it on and off? No. But it's what? I don't know, 120 days old, 130 days old. I don't know. But the point is, we're in the bottom of the bear. So what's the future look like? If you're just thinking about, well, what tokens are going to go up and to the right, number go up? Well, that's going to happen because the market moves together and we're going to have another bull run when they turn the money printer back on. Likely it's going to be the first of the year or the Bitcoin halving. But there's something more important here is that all of these social things and all this exposure of all of this corruption is also going to be exposed to the light. And where is that going to drive people? To places in which they can transact privately. And at some point in time, there's going to be some sort of spiritual aha, and you're going to be like, do you want to take this mark of the beast? You get what I'm saying. It's a big deal. It's a really big deal. And it's just showing you the exposure of this. So if you want to take a look at this violation tracker, you can go to my Twitter, which is Crypto Heartbeat, and you can look for yourself. I mean, go across all different people, but it is so significant and shows you the absolute basis of the corruption. And what this means in this SEC case is they've got hundreds and hundreds of settled lawsuits in up to $13 billion fines. And here we're talking about Richard Hart, and it's, you think about it, it's like you wanted to beat it. The best thing for Richard Hart is that he's sitting on $600 million worth of DAI, and he's got some money from his lifestyle and from his past, good decisions. He can actually defend himself. These people come after you and I, you're ruined, right? And so, on one hand, I'm like, yeah, like let's set a precedent. Now, the opportunity here is to actually get a precedent set in the courts, and then to get reasonable people in the US government to be able to make actual laws. What is the regulatory SEC? It goes, they don't make laws, but that's essentially what they're doing because there's no clarity, and they don't want to give clarity because it's a freaking gravy train. Think about all the stuff they did with Ripple and all that they got inside there. The CBDCs are going to be run by Ripple. They just needed to acquire the relationships in the tech. It's sick. And it's corrupt, and it's disgusting. There you go. That's my 2 cents. What do you think? Let's talk about it. Frosty Dog, good to see you. Great reset. Taryn, Crypto Heartbeat. You can't both say it isn't our money if it was sacrificed, donated, and say it is our money and pay a fine settlement. Yeah, I'm not suggesting he pays the settlement. I'm saying where is, if Richard Hart does settle, right? And what do they want? I'm talking about the motivation, not the physical actual money. Let's say you donated it. Okay, let's just use that terminology because I think that's pretty much accurate. I gave it with no expectations, like I would make a donation. So it's a gift. Okay, I made a gift to Richard Hart. If he pays $12 to $17 million in a fine fee, where's that money come from? You, me. Well, it wasn't our money, but in effect, it's just a means of rerouting it. But what is the motivation and where does the money go? It's not like it gets redistributed to people, right? Like the fines is actually the budget of the SEC. This is the corruption that I'm pointing out. Now, to say that it is ours, well, what are they doing? Trying to protect you? Do you feel protected? I don't. Magnus, what's going on? Yeah, I'd rather believe in the lie. Believe in the lie than the truth. Yeah, the truth is, it's like, get me back into the matrix. I want to remember nothing. 79 days left to be heard, and this is it. What can we do? Well, in Texas, what we can do is we can sign the petition, and it's converted to online now, and so they're counting those online petition signatures. If you're in Texas and you're not signing this petition, come on, get on it. So there's a link. tnm.me/petition. Cut it out. Samantha, what's up? David Lee with the fire. Please subscribe. There you go. Preserving American Texas. We were supposed to do it today. We're going to have to pick it up in the fall here. But all of this stuff fits together. And I just wanted to point this out because I was just disgusted by it. But I saw it for what it was. It's corruption. Um, Also, look at pharma finds fraud, then decide whether you want their cures. Absolutely. There's another perfect example. But this is the classic case of the government. I mean, this is ultimately, Marxism. When the government colludes with, media, colludes with financial system, with pharma, right? This is why you have authoritarians. This is why you have global organizations. And this is why you've got this pushback. Folks, this stuff is going to fold. It's going to be ripped apart at the seams, and it's already happening. The question is, what are we going to rebuild? If you're in charge of rebuilding something, are you going to do it just to get yours, right? Take the plunder and build a kingdom for yourself. I think this is something that the founders of America had to deal with. They're like, we won the war. What do we do now? Do we just create another monarchy, or do we give it away? I think the opportunity that we have is to lead in this crisis era with DeFi and give it away. Let people have access in an even footing. Make it fair. I'm not saying that you should be rewarded if you don't make an investment. No, it should be proportional to your investment. You should have access and the opportunity, right? That's it. It's equal opportunity, not equal outcome. But the problem is it is completely corrupt and it is skewed, and you do not have the fairness in the legal system, financially, pharma, whatever it may be. And that's the promise of this. What are the tools? What's the fulcrum? What is the lever that we have to pull? Well, DeFi is it. And where is this going to operate in its most decentralized way that's going to not compromise its principles? It's the pulse chain. But right now you're like, well, prices are down. I'm looking way ahead. I'm like, where is it going to have a life? Where is the alternative going to live? I don't think it's going to live on Ethereum. I mean, Vitalik's already compromised. It's going to live on the Pulse chain. Why? Because Richard won't compromise. Why? Because everything's built on this glory concept, and his reputation's on the line. And what does he defend? Freedom of speech, freedom of movement. This is real conviction. It's not like, oh, well, it's a good marketing tool. No. These are real things. Why do you think he goes through all these cases and defends all this stuff? He's an advocate. And I think you want to get some glory. The glory will ultimately be you have a financial system, a new economic order that's an alternative to this corrupt globalist one. We're a part of creating that, folks. Like, we need to, like, Wonder Twin powers unite. Form of new economic order. Roof Dog. Hey, fam. It's been a while since I caught live stream. Hey, good to see you. Ladies and gentlemen, Brandon from Rags to Riches. What's up, fam? Good to see you. Bearded Saint. What's up, man? Hope you're hanging in there. Good to see you in the chat. Loving the content you've been pushing out there, Rags. Yeah, Rags is on en fuego, as they say. Doing amazing, amazing work. Talk about somebody who has been helping us get through this bear market. Only one piece of feedback, Rags, and that's this. Your mic's really hot, just so you know. Great stuff, Crypto Heartbeat. Thanks, man. Humberto Gonzalez. Yo. Blessings today from sunny Dominican Republic, not Miami anymore. They're getting ready to offer yet another new deal. Learn about the breaking of chains, the authoritarian corruption, and Texan. Yep, you can learn more about it at tnm.me, the news. Let's see here. CBDCs require consent, and if people refuse to use it, then it does not go anywhere. And when they've tested it, right, they tested it in the Bahamas. That was the sand dollar. And they tested it also, I think, it was an African nation, Nigeria. And I think they got about 10% adoption. Yeah, it's going to require it be mandated. And, you think the digital dollar and all this is like, can you actually push this down people's throats? I mean, look what's happening in New Mexico right now, right? The New Mexico governor in the most populated county basically completely took people's Second Amendment rights away. Law-abiding citizens who have under the Constitution Second Amendment rights using executive, emergency powers related to some health concern because she didn't like that people got shot with guns, criminals shooting children. She decided, well, we're just going to keep people from being able to carry. And you know what ended up happening? People showed up with their guns. They're like, nope, sorry. And then the police officers are like, we're not going to do this. And it just goes to show you, I guess there's still some people with some common sense out there. But that's what these authoritarian folks are. They're like, we can do anything, right? And so, what does it become? What does the climate become, and what does the health stuff become? It becomes, it becomes this tool that they use to exercise power. People are fed up with this stuff, right? It's going to be really interesting what comes of this. But do you see that this is a variable that we haven't had in the past as it relates to DeFi? It's freedom and sovereignty related. It's the fact that, hold on, you mess with people's money and their kids and you got trouble and their guns. You got problems, folks. You just think, well, we can just push them around. No, you can't. You can only go so far. And this will tip and it will break apart. And the question is, if we are a part of forming something new, well, what are we doing? We're building digital nations. We're talking about building a new nation in Texas. Why? Because we want to preserve what's great about the American idea, which is fairness, right? This idea of real transparency, equal justice under the law, right? Protecting people and not being multi-tiered. Capitalism, not crony capitalism, right? We want to have like common sense, basic stuff. This is not it. We're living in bizarro world. No doubt SEC is corrupt. I think you should negotiate, pay the fine, and we'll all move into a massive bull market. If he fights what happens, option 3 would be worse. Ignore. Let's see what happens. He's not ignoring it. He's dealing with this stuff. He's going to do the conference call or whatever, and he's going to walk this stuff out. We'll see, right? Because a lot of this stuff has to be appealed, right? And that you have to have a judgment that you can appeal and go to the courts and let these things rise up. It's going to take time. But I don't think he's going to just pay it and move on. And that's not good, right? That's not good for the numbers. But here's the thing. We've got, in my opinion, we got more downside to go. It may be, look at the Bitcoin chart in January, right? Kind of the bottom. I think we'll touch that bottom again before we go up. Could that be into the new year? Maybe. I don't think it gets better before. I think it's worse before it gets better. And that's not what people want to hear. David Lee. How much do you see the next presidency driving what happens to crypto macroeconomy? I think more importantly, not just the president. I think it's Congress, right? So it's the House and the Senate. So if we were to have a Republican president and the House and the Senate were Republican, we would have very, very comprehensive, sensible crypto regulations. They already have these things written up, and there are people that represent these things. And I think we'd actually get something on the books that was reasonable. We'd have clarity, and it would be pro-business, we're just pushing this innovation elsewhere. The United States and people in the United States think that we are the world. We're not the world. This is a jurisdiction. People are just going elsewhere. They're like, we don't live in the United States, right? It just sucks that, we can't, and there's not an incentive to have these things, right? Gary Gensler loves this power, right? He doesn't want regulation. He doesn't want somebody telling him what to do. He likes this. And who knows? I mean, it's like Fauci, right? And how much money he made on all these patents and everything. He doesn't want to disclose that stuff because he would have a conflict of interest. The same thing is true. It's all rotting from within, and that's good. That's good. Let it be exposed. Finn Bear, what's going on? Trinity Realm, was up. Evo, good to see you. It is ASMR. Okay, fair enough. We get to, my favorite is when you have a little gastrointestinal issues. Those are my favorite. I like to hear that stuff. But yeah, we're definitely ASMR. You got a hot mic, baby. That's part of it, right? The ASMR ginger. SEC won't exist in a free and independent Texas. Amen to that. There's a lot of things that won't exist, right? Right? Think about all these 3-letter agencies. They won't exist. Oh, IRS? Nope. Think about what it would look like if you rebooted the system. You have to have a framework, but this stuff all goes away. It's interesting. Why did people put GTT on their doorways? Gone to Texas. What did a lot of people do? They were escaping things that were problematic in the United States, and they went to the Republic of Texas. It's happening again, my friends. Magnus, what's up? Anything in this life that is forced on people never works. People adopt things willingly when it proves utility and value. Amen to that. Texan OG Day 1. WHO is screeching in pain as countries no longer provide flu information to them. Yeah. It's amazing is that the WHO has adopted the framework of I think it's the European Union as it relates to travel. And we're going to see this. You will not be able to travel internationally unless you have updated vaccine information. That's where it's going. In this whole 15-minute city and all this. You watch this next time, which is coming here in the fall, right? We've already got these new variants. I mean, this is it, man. Lock people down, keep them from traveling. If you don't have a little green bar on your phone, you can't go anywhere. It's already here. Yeah, nobody cares about the flu suddenly. If you look at the number of people that die from the flu prior to 2020, it's crazy. I think if he fights and even wins, we lose. Interesting. We missed the ball, and honestly, the corrupt SEC will go on to their next victim. They're a puppet of a corrupt left-wing USA government. Yeah, very possibly. But you know what, though? Let's stop for a second. Pulse Chain isn't Richard Hart. I mean, he built it, and he'll defend it. But here's the thing. These things that are bonded together, Hart's Law, there's a lot of money that's come in. And let's not forget, the whales that sacrificed are still around. Now, some of them, a couple people really move the price and people get bent out of shape about it. But here's the thing. Not only does Richard sit on $600 million worth of dye, that's going to get deployed somewhere. But if you think about all these people that are building these incredible things on the Pulse Chain, the beauty of it not only being, apples to apples, cheaper and an opportunity, but you're going to also see, I think, some moves because Richard's always playing 4D chess. You're going to see some things behind the scenes. And I do believe, remember when there was the 731 gathering? Remember that 2-year anniversary of Hex? And they were in London. And remember, I want you to remember this. There were people who flew in on private jets and there was a dinner, and Crypto Coffee got kicked out because there wasn't a seat for him. He was going to this thing and they're like booting him out. Why? Because all the big whales were at that dinner with Richard. And there was a huge table. It might have been 30 people. They flew in and flew out. There's a whole group of people that are in this stuff. And you're thinking, well, no, everybody's gone and everybody's poor like me. No, they're not. What are they waiting for? They're waiting for the same thing everybody else is. Here's the thing. You don't sacrifice this kind of money. You look at those big wallets. You don't have 150,000 people growing in this thing. No. All these things are manipulated. You think that the hex price just naturally went up? I mean, think again. There's coordinated efforts in this stuff. People like green candles. It's not green candle time yet, but when it's green candle time, it's going to be green candle time. You take care of the baby that you birthed. I know that to be true, but I don't know that we're going to miss it, Umberto, completely, because I think that, Richard's got too many levers to pull, right? That's why $1.6 billion was a big deal. Helps you defend lawsuits, but it helps you also to support the thing that you created. You don't just leave it to languish. Right now it's languishing because everything's languishing. Conceding rings the dinner bell for the administrative state. There you go. Trinity Realm, identify as fully jabbed or just become a billionaire and you can go anywhere you want with your own jet. There you go. There you go. That sounds like a good idea. Let's do that. Identify as fully jabbed. It's crazy to me. What I heard from my dad when I was growing up, and his big things that he always was upset by was, they're tracking all the money. Okay. He was really bent out of shape. The regulators told him how much water he could have in his toilet. I mean, my dad he talked about that so many times. He's like, yeah, because he would do, mechanical stuff and fix stuff around the house. And it's like, and these light bulbs, like you can't use these light bulbs. Man, he just hated that they were basically poking their head into your business. You should be able to use whatever kind of light bulbs you want. And he was like, I want to put 1.5 gallons of water in my toilet. I'm going to use that, right? I'm going to do it the way I want to. And you think about this, boy, that looks almost quaint compared to the things now. Folks, this is unsustainable. You can't do this to regular people. And there's a lot of just idiots out there, right? Like Justin Trudeau, who think they can get away with this stuff. But there's a point in which they can only bend so much. And good people that are out there earning wages and aren't focused on this thing, they're going to go too far. What does it look like? I don't know. But I think that, I really do think if I had to predict how Texas becomes independent, or at least how the referendum happens, I think it's over the border issue. Yeah, I really do. I think it's over this border issue. And if you get a chance, on my Twitter, I reposted conversation in, I want to say, Utica, Michigan, where Tucker Carlson was speaking, and he referenced his conversations that he's had with Texas governor, and basically saying, "Why aren't you doing something about this? You got a National Guard. Why aren't you standing up to it?" And you know what? There's going to be a point where push comes to shove. And to me, this is the issue I think that ultimately leads to the referendum. Because, you just look at how many people have been coming across the border, and, the government suing the state of Texas over putting up, flotation barriers because of what, fish or something in the Rio Grande? Come on. Come on, folks. Well, that's what I had to tell you today. Folks, corruption. The SEC and JP Morgan is just an example of what the government has done to collude with those that are in power. And when we think about what's happened since 2008, really, that was the birth of Bitcoin. And what was it in response to? Hey, let's use these tools to be able to create transparency. Peer-to-peer digital cash was the goal of Bitcoin. It will eventually get here. Will it be Bitcoin? No, it's all this value that we're accumulating in these digital nations, in these communities of trust, around these places where we build relationships. And folks, I think the future of all this is regular people are going to declare their own value. And this is an opportunity where we separate political power from financial power, and we take back and we turn this thing right side up, and we realize that these tools, no, we're creating fairness, returning equality of people and opportunity back into the system. But right now they're just changing database records and they're stealing directly from you. And then they play games with the too big to fail people. And we got 1.75 billion line item for this risk management. Hey, throw me a bone, man. Hey, you want to go to the Caymans this weekend? That's how it works. It's sickening. And who pays for it? We pay for it. David Lee's like, that's $150,000 per month. Maybe the mayor of New York will sign the petition. Yeah, he's pretty frustrated with all the illegals that are coming in there. They're like, we're a sanctuary city. Oh, how's that working out for you? Oh, man, the irony of all this stuff. But you look at what's happening in New Mexico. You get these governors that think they can pull this stuff. I mean, let's hope that leveler heads prevail. And if they don't, let this thing fail and literally fall under its own weight. And as we rebuild it, we're going to rebuild it considering others in addition to ourselves. We're not just going to try to hoard and lord and continue to, perpetuate this system of scarcity, but usher in one of abundance. Folks, take care of yourself. Thanks for stepping in and being a part of the Pulse. My name is Matt. This is Crypto Heartbeat, and do not mess with Texas. Take care, everybody.